Suffering is not a mistake in your life. It is a message, a weapon, and a hidden invitation from God that most people never fully understand. And if you miss this truth, you will spend years fighting what was actually meant to form you. Because the shocking reality is that God does some of His deepest work in you through pain you never asked for and battles you cannot escape. And you feel it right now as confusion, delay, loss, rejection, or loneliness that seems unfair. But heaven sees it as intentional, because you were never meant to be shaped by comfort, but by pressure. Just as gold is refined by fire and not by applause. And this is why Scripture warns that those who desire to live godly lives will face trials, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because what you are suffering through is not random, but aligned with an unseen purpose that only makes sense when you realize that God is more concerned with who you are becoming than what you are currently escaping. And this is the first hidden truth of suffering in God's plan. Suffering exposes what success would have concealed, because when everything is easy, you can fake faith. But when pain strips away your strength, your reputation, and your control, what remains is what you truly trust. Which is why Job's suffering revealed a depth of righteousness that prosperity never displayed, and why Psalm 66 speaks of God testing us as silver is tested. Because pressure does not create character, it reveals it. And if you are suffering silently, it may be because God is exposing misplaced dependencies, hidden pride, or false identities you unknowingly built your life upon. Not to shame you, but to free you. Because what God exposes, He intends to heal. And this is where the second shocking insight emerges. Suffering is often the language God uses when whispers no longer reach you. Because comfort dulls discernment, but pain sharpens hearing. And when everything is smooth, you rarely ask eternal questions. But when life fractures, you suddenly become aware of your need for God in a way success never taught you. Which is why Scripture says God is close to the brokenhearted, not because He enjoys your pain, but because pain finally positions you to receive what pride kept you from. And this is why Paul's thorn was not removed despite prayer, because God knew that weakness would protect Paul from self-exaltation and anchor him in grace. And this leads to the third hidden meaning of suffering. Suffering separates you from what cannot go where God is taking you, because some people, desires, habits, and dreams are too small or too heavy to accompany your calling. And if God removed them gently, you would cling to them. So He allows pressure to force the separation. Which is why Joseph's betrayal preceded his promotion, why Moses' wilderness preceded deliverance, and why Jesus Himself was led into the wilderness before ministry. Because God never elevates what has not been emptied. And if you feel isolated or misunderstood, it may not be rejection, but redirection. Because suffering filters your relationships until only what is aligned with your destiny remains. And this process hurts because attachments are being broken. But heaven sees it as mercy, not cruelty. Because what cannot survive the fire was never meant to rule your future. And then comes the fourth truth that many believers secretly struggle to accept. Suffering trains you to recognize God's voice over your emotions, because pain amplifies feelings, and feelings can lie. But suffering teaches you obedience beyond understanding, which is why Scripture says we walk by faith and not by sight, and why Jesus learned obedience through what He suffered, not because He lacked obedience, but because suffering refined it into something unshakable. And when you choose to trust God in pain without answers, you are developing spiritual authority that cannot be manufactured in ease, because heaven responds to faith tested by fire, not faith tested by theory. And this is where Romans 8:28 is often misunderstood, because all things working together for good does not mean all things feel good. It means all things are being woven into something eternal, even when the pattern looks like chaos. And this is the final, deeply hidden truth. Suffering is the birthplace of spiritual sight, because until you suffer, you often live for outcomes. But after suffering, you live for truth. And once truth becomes your anchor, circumstances lose their power to define you. And this is why those who suffer deeply often love deeply, forgive freely, and walk humbly, because pain has stripped them of illusions. And this is also the warning most people ignore. If you try to escape suffering prematurely, you may delay the very breakthrough you are praying for, because shortcuts avoid refinement, and unrefined strength collapses under responsibility, which is why God sometimes withholds relief, not because He is absent, but because He is protecting you from a future you are not yet equipped to carry. And if you are suffering now, it does not mean God has forgotten you. It may mean He is trusting you with a process others could not survive, because chosen ones are often forged in hidden places where no applause exists, where obedience is costly, and where faith must stand without evidence. And the question is not why you are suffering, but whether you will allow suffering to transform you rather than harden you. Because the same fire that melts wax hardens clay, and the outcome depends on your posture, not the pain itself. So here is the challenge you cannot ignore. Stop asking God to remove what He is using to shape you, and start asking Him to reveal what this season is producing in you. Because when you surrender to the process instead of resisting it, suffering loses its power to destroy you and becomes the very tool God uses to reveal His glory through you. And when this season ends, and it will, you will not just be delivered from something, you will be delivered into someone stronger, wiser, and unshakable. And that is the true meaning of suffering in God's plan. Thank you for watching. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to support me. If you want to receive more messages to strengthen your faith, please subscribe and walk with me in the truth of the Lord.